Hugh Freeze gave a tremendous report regarding the health of this football team.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Hugh Freeze just spoke to the media for his Monday presser. No glaring surprises, but I do think there was some good news shared regarding the health of this football team. He does preview Oklahoma and talk about Jackson Arnold and all that stuff. But I mean, this time a week ago, we got bad news regarding the health of a few key players, including Darrell Robinson a week ago. This week, he was asked about the status of this team regarding health, because there's a lot of guys that are kind of up in the air, questionable, that kind of got banged up and did not return in the game against South Alabama. He said all of them seemed to be good to go. The one that would be questionable, the most concern, is defensive end Amaris Williams. What could that mean for that part of the roster? We'll get that in a second, but that means, Eric Singleton, who had something, seems like he tweaked his hip a little bit. That ended his day. We saw Jay Crawford leave, and then obviously Damari Alston didn't play. Champ Anthony, Rayshon Pleasant. So you gotta hope that all of those guys play. And that's going to add tremendous, one, depth, two, upside, three, you got to think it helps with the preparation and the execution for all the folks that are upset with how Auburn played against South Alabama. I think having those guys, some of those guys, your leaders, especially Damari, expecting them to be back this weekend, I don't think is a surprise, to be 100% honest, but it is nice that Hugh Freeze went out and kind of said that he expected a lot of them to go, which I think you could argue strategically it may have made sense to not do that, to kind of keep things close to the vest, keep guys questionable. But from a guy who wants to see these guys suit up and play for the Auburn Tigers in Norman this Saturday, I think it's awesome. Amaris Williams being questionable is a big deal. He's been really solid so far this season, taking on that larger role. He was asked, okay, if Amaris doesn't go, who are guys that could step into his place and get more reps? And he said, of course, we're going to play Keldrick. Of course, we're going to play Chris Murray. Of course, we're going to play Keyron. But the guy that could take that next step could be Jared Smith. I posted a stat Sunday morning on social media. I post a stat of the day every morning at 7 a.m. And the stat of the day Sunday was Jared Smith had 9 pass rushing snaps against South Alabama. With those 9 snaps, he had 3 pressures, a sack, and a forced fumble. I mean, this is a guy who is getting it going in these small sample sizes, and we might see more of him this weekend if Amaris Williams does not go. And of course, you got to look at the context of when he's getting those snaps. It's later in the game. Also, a situation where if South Alabama felt like they were in it, they had to pass it. And it kind of allows you to tee off a little bit more. But still, I don't want to discount what Jared Smith has done in the small sample size. He's been incredible. He's been really, really good. And he's backing up everything we heard about him throughout the offseason. So that's great. That's great. Not great for Amaris, but we might see more of Jared Smith on Saturday, which we talked about depth in that edge room. It's certainly there. It's certainly there. Hugh Freeze opened up the presser saying, hey, it's great to be 3-0. Kind of said a lot of the same stuff that he said after the game on Saturday. He did highlight that the offense had no offensive penalties and no turnovers. I guess I knew that, but I didn't realize it. I didn't put that into words, but that's great as far as kind of being clean on the offensive side of the football. Then on defense, he said that, he pointed out that they held South to 3.3 yards per rush, but their amount of missed assignments went up, which isn't surprising, right? Like, obviously seeing the product that was on the field and the questions and the chatter and to some extent panic that has circulated since Saturday's game. Like, I don't think that's a surprise that the missed assignments went up. Now, also, South Alabama significantly better than Ball State. Ball is not a state, but they actually didn't really have an offense. South has an offense. All Ball State has is a guy who it doesn't seem to want to throw the football, and Auburn was able to keep them one dimensional. Most teams will be able to keep them one dimensional, but clearly the misassignments that's the big question. Been asked several times, is it scheme or is it talent when it comes to the shortcomings of the defense so far? And I think it's very clear it's scheme, not necessarily what's being called, but what's being executed. Physically, this group can do whatever you ask them to do. It's just they've got to do it. They've all got to be on the same page, whether it's communication, player to player, coach to player. I don't know. I don't know exactly what that next step is, but they've got to figure that out, especially the safeties and that star position. It's going to be crucial. It's going to be crucial this weekend against the Oklahoma Sooners. He had, I think, some positive news staying on the topic of health regarding Alex McPherson, as well as Keyron Crawford. That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Kia Autosport Columbus.com. Whether you're in Auburn or Opelika or even Atlanta, odds are if you're listening to this podcast, Columbus, Georgia, just a short drive away, just off of Whittlesey Boulevard. Go see our friends at Kia Autosport Columbus. You also can go to their website, KiaAutosportColumbus.com. If you mention the show, go first off, ask for Chris Child. Mention the show. Hey, heard about you guys on Locked On Auburn. $500 off any new Kia already. And I'm sure they're running deals to get you, the best deal possible. They have a great facility over there. Going to try to do a show from there sometime soon. But head over to KiaAutosportColumbus.com, browse their full inventory, and start saving today. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, if you're new to FanDuel, which one, you're kind of late to the party, football's already kind of rocking and rolling. We've got movement on the Auburn-Oklahoma line. When we recorded yesterday, 5.5. Now, 6.5. Many are speculating it will be a full touchdown game by the time of the opening kick. So take that for what it's worth. Auburn right now, a 6.5-point dog to Oklahoma on Saturday. Head over to FanDuel.com right now to check out all of their sweet bonus action going on. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Staying on the topic of health just for a second, Alex McPherson, Auburn's kicker. We saw him look okay as far as kicking extra points. He kicked a field goal against South Alabama. He was brought up a few times just now at Hugh Freeze's presser, and he was asked specifically about him getting his strength back. Freeze mentioned it specifically, and then it prompted a follow-up question. I mean, the goal is to get him healthy. And the question was stated, to try to get him, close to full go by October. It sounds like they changed up some of the way he's being treated as far as getting his weight up. And, my understanding is keeping food down has been a tough thing for him. So it sounds like they're taking steps in the right direction. Obviously, that's great for football because he's a great kicker. But the most important thing here is him as a human being. This young man has a full life ahead of him. And it sounds like they're getting more answers and taking steps in the right direction. So that's awesome. That's awesome for Alex McPherson. Keyron Crawford was brought up by a media member, and Hugh Freeze kind of said something similar a week ago, but I think it's worth repeating, is how great Keyron Crawford has been throughout the offseason, and it's turning into production. We forget, because this was a big thing that we talked about when he came over from Arkansas State, which Arkansas is a state, is we talked about how raw he was. Hadn't been playing football that long. And we're like, this guy has so much upside, and we're starting to see it come together. I mean, the tandem of him and Keldrick Falk have kind of posed a problem for opposing offensive lines. Those are two guys you have to worry about, and we've seen different guys kind of step up in the interior to kind of help that unit as a whole. I think as far as them keeping containment against John Mateer on Saturday and pressuring him, that's going to be a thing. Michigan was able to get to Mateer some. I think Auburn's going to be able to. I think it's going to be a critical matchup for Auburn if they want to pull the upset. Guys like Keldrick, guys like Keyron, guys like Chris Kelly. We don't have Charles Kelly anymore, sadly. But to me, it's about this pass rushing. Keyron Crawford is going to be a big part of that. Freeze was asked about Jackson Arnold and like what the strategy is of having a guy starting at quarterback and playing against the team where he started last year. It's kind of unique. It's very unique. It's going to become more common as his transfer portal era evolves and grows. But right now, like, you don't see this too often. And Freeze said they haven't really talked that much about it, which I'm curious if it's true or not. I guess I believe him. I don't know why he wouldn't be truthful about that. I just kind of find that a little hard to believe. He added that they talked about the like the stadium itself and the environment, and it's loud and they get a lot of people in there and all that. But I thought that was interesting. He was asked about the 13 freshmen that played on Saturday and, who impressed him the most. He mentioned New Boy Fagans and Eric Winters. Not surprising. We've seen them kind of rotate in with the starters. And he was also asked, like, do you expect to keep that same rotation that you have up to this point going into SEC play? And he's like, I haven't talked to DJ Durkin about it, but I'm kind of expecting that to be the case, which I don't think is surprising. I think that matches what he's done since he's been here, or specifically last year. So then the only other thing is he talked about they strained better. That was a big part of the press conference last week, was they were working on straining. And what he meant by that was making sure you don't end the play early. And it sounds like in practice last week, they ended the play later than they have been up to that point in the season and throughout fall camp. And I think he talked about it under the context of like the offensive line finishing blocks, whether it was pass protection or in the running game. And I kind of noticed that too. I think that's good. I don't think we saw it on the defensive side as much, but I definitely think we saw it on the offensive side of the football. And obviously, he said we're going to have to continue to strain, finish plays, play through the whistle. Obviously, if you want to upset Oklahoma on Saturday. So those are my main takeaways from Hugh Freeze, Auburn head coach, previewing Oklahoma later this week. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And if you're tuned in on audio, please subscribe and leave us a review. Helps the show out a ton. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.